Well, good afternoon. We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the third meeting of the 40th session of the Faculty Senate of Texas A&M University. If you need a reminder of the Zoom features used in our website meetings, the Zoom tip sheet can be found on our website at the top of the current agenda page. At this time, please make sure your microphone is muted. Senator Andrew Klein will be monitoring the raise hands function. He will verbally identify you, then you can unmute your mic and ask your question. In fairness to others, please limit yourself to one question at a time. Senator Klein also will be monitoring the chat to convey messages as necessary, so please send any chat questions directly to him. We're using the registration function of Zoom to track attendance. Most visitors today have been asked to view the meeting via our live stream, but our guests and administrators who may be asked to answer questions are joining via Zoom. Visitors wishing to address the Senate may make this request by sending a chat message to Senator Klein or by using the raise hands function. Finally, if a senator wishes to offer a motion during today's meeting, please raise your hand during new business and ask to be recognized. Our first order of business is our trio of guests from Faculty Affairs. please help me welcome N.K. Anand, Vice President for Faculty Affairs, Heather Wilkinson, Vice President for Faculty Affairs and Associate Provost for Faculty Success, and Heather Lynch, Senior Associate Vice President for Faculty Affairs. They will be discussing tenure and promotion, including survey results and streamlining the P&T process. Vice President Anand, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Speaker Rice. As President Banks went around the listening tour, one of the feedbacks that she got was that the tenure and promotion process was very cumbersome, and burdensome, both on the candidates and the evaluators. So as a result, she asked us to, to look into this matter. So our office embarked on a survey first. And so we over 600 people, faculty members participated in the survey, and the survey results will be presented by Dr. Heather Wilkinson. And then based on the feedback that we have received, we have come up with a proposal, and this is kind of evolving, and the streamlining reduction in the the effort that is required to put a P&T package together will be presented by Dr. Heather Lynch. Hopefully, both of them will take less than 15 minutes. So with this, I will turn it over to Dr. Heather Wilkinson.
Thank you, NK. I'll share my screen. Okay, so I don't see my PowerPoint on my screen, so hold on just a second. This is where I like to say I do Zoom for a living. Okay. Okay, I'll just share my desktop and then show it from there. Sorry, guys. I haven't used this computer yet for this, which was a bad call.
Should Dr. Lynch go first then, Dr.
How about Dr. Lynch goes first and then I'll back up.
Okay.
Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. This is going to be a little bit out of order because the simplifications that I'm going to talk about were informed by the feedback in this that we received from the surveys. So our principles in trying to simplify the P&T process, we were aiming for parsimony, trying to eliminate redundancy in the process, using technology to reduce the workload while maintaining the integrity of the process and the high standards that we have across the university. And this was informed, all of the changes were informed by feedback from the faculty that we received through the survey. And again, about 680 faculty completed that. Again, this is a proposal, so we welcome your feedback or comments or suggestions. So the general process changes that we're proposing is to make the university guidelines as simple as possible by making it web-based and integrating all of the information that you need in one place for each step of the process. As you'll see in the survey results, one of the major comments that we received from faculty is that the guidelines for APT faculty in particular are unclear. We now have titles that are consistent across the university, and that will allow us at the university level to clarify those guidelines for APT faculty in the next round. For external reviewer letters, right now, many units create external reviewer requests and send them directly to the external reviewers. We're proposing to transition to use Interfolio for all external reviewer requests. That has multiple benefits including eliminating a lot of the redundant paperwork and processes that we go through. So one of those has to do with uploading the letters. That will be automatic with this change. Right now, there are pretty extensive justifications in some cases for reviewers that are outside of the typical or recommended parameters of the guidelines. That would now be a checkbox as part of the letter request. Right now, units have to monitor who's accepted and declined, and then remind people. That would also be automatic. And it will notify you if the reviewer hasn't opened the email yet, so that units know to follow up. Right now, units upload a document listing all of the external reviewer information, an external reviewer checklist, and an external reviewer chart. All of that can be part of the letter request in Interfolio through checkboxes or short text entries. So there's no need for those additional documents to be created. Right now, the units write biographies of external reviewers for a maximum of half page, and we're proposing to change that to a text box entry within Interfolio with an option to be much shorter and briefer in the justification. For tenure review upon hire, right now, 3 arm's length letters are required in addition to the reference letters that were provided as part of the application process. We're proposing that the 3 reference letters can be used as part of the tenure review upon hire process, although they have to address the tenure questions that the university provides for all external reviewers. That does mean that if the hire is not a target recruit, some revision of the letters might be needed. If the faculty is imminent, only 3 arm's length letters are required now. We're proposing to switch that so that the 3 reference letters can be used for tenure review upon hire, with the aim of speeding the review process. Right now, the candidate relies on guidelines that are in a PDF online. We're proposing to provide on-demand short modules for each section of the dossier with clear instructions to the faculty member. Right now, the candidate develops their CV with minimal consistency on the structure, and little guidelines for the structure of the CV. We're proposing to make a template available that can be used. This would also eliminate the need for the candidate to fill out and upload a separate grants table. So we're proposing to incorporate that in the template instead of as a separate document. Right now, the candidate completes a form verifying contents. We're proposing to have that be a checkbox in Interfolio. Right now, the candidate writes a biography and uploads it. We're proposing to use the biography that's generated through F-180 and is part of the annual review process. Right now, the candidate creates a faculty summary data table. We're proposing to curate that within F-180 as well, instead of as a separate upload and document. Right now, the candidate or the department pulls student evaluation data for the courses that they've taught into reports and tables. We're proposing to create a pull from APHIS, which has the student evaluation scores, into Interfolio P&T. We are working on if that's feasible. So that's a proposal that I can't guarantee 100%, but that's what we're trying to accomplish. Right now, the candidate prepares a dossier cover sheet that is redundant with other information that's available. So we're proposing to remove that. For the department and college processes, right now, the department records the votes and then it's stated repeatedly in reports. We're proposing that a staff administrator enters that once within Interfolio. So there's no need to repeatedly document it. Right now, the department head is charged with notifying the candidate of the outcome at each level of review. We're proposing that Interfolio will give a notification that a decision has been made, and then the unit leader would follow up with the specifics about the outcome. Right now, the department creates a faculty tenure table that is also redundant with information in the faculty portal, so we're proposing to remove that. Right now, the department committee creates 4 separate reports for scholarship, teaching, service, and then a summary of the discussion. We're proposing that this be a single report to reduce redundancy in the uploads, but the single report will still continue to have contributions by 3 separate members of the committee that are charged with contributing to the report. Right now, the department head and the deans generate a report with limited guidance and structure. We're proposing to provide a template for them to use to ensure that key elements are included consistently across candidates. Right now, the colleges and schools provide copies of the forms to faculty affairs before December. We do not need that information, so we're proposing that instead they submit a single spreadsheet with the names of the candidates and the type of evaluation. As you'll see in the survey results in just a moment, there's variation among the colleges and schools in the degree to which faculty perceive that their P&T processes are efficient and satisfactory. So we're proposing to work with the units to review and reduce extra or unused information in their dossier items as much as possible. We're also proposing to work with the units to align the unit guidelines with the university guidelines and timelines. And then one of the issues that came up in the survey was that candidates report that they're not aware of the timelines within their unit for review. So we're proposing that faculty affairs will post the department and college timelines in April, so that that's available to all candidates in a consistent manner and in a consistent place. So this is our current process with the 13 dossier items plus all the extras that people submit as part of the process, part of the submission. And this is the proposed process. So again, we're not losing any of the elements of the review. Instead, we're utilizing the structure and the technology to reduce redundancy and unnecessary portions of the portfolio.
Okay, so I'll give the survey now, and I apologize to Heather because that really was a surprise, I know. So I was trying to make sure I was on a hardwired computer because I've been having trouble with Zoom. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay. So as you likely know, we took a survey about the P&T satisfaction. It was a very simple survey looking at both the efficiency and satisfaction. And then we had a question about what would you like to see changed? And were there any steps that were unclear or seemed unneeded? In your most recent role? We asked folks what their most recent roles were so that we'd have a sense for that as well. And then we had open-ended comments as well. So you can see, as NK pointed out, over 600 people responded. 500 of them were tenure track, and 172 were from academic professional tracks. This is just laid out by, soon we won't have so many titles. So this is laid out by all the various titles that responded. You'll notice that there's 292 full professors participating in it. And so a breadth of experience dealing with the process, no doubt. And then this was what the most recent role people had played. For this question, you could select more than one, like all the roles that you played within the period of time that we asked about, which I think was the last several years. Yes, that may have been the last 5 years. And this was the distribution of people responding from different colleges and schools. And it's pretty concomitant with the size of those places. Okay, so for overall satisfaction and efficiency ratings, you'll notice that 27.5% of the respondents indicated some level of dissatisfaction, right? So either very dissatisfied or somewhat dissatisfied. So more close to 30% of folks indicated that. And then for efficiency, 24.5% indicated a sense of it being either highly inefficient or inefficient. So just keep that in mind. And then efficiency rating varied across academic titles. Now we had more professors responding, so that's possibly an effect as well. But you'll notice that between academic professional track and assistant professors, which were closer to 2, and the professor level, there was a reasonable difference in their level of satisfaction. The scale over here corresponds to the Likert scale on the question. So a 0 is highly efficient, all the way up to a 4 is, 0 is highly inefficient, all the way up to a 4 is highly efficient, right? So the full professors found it more efficient than the earlier ranks. The satisfaction rating, once again, that kind of fell out similarly across academic titles. And then if you look at satisfaction by college, there was a wide variety of that as well. And I believe this PDF will be provided so that y'all can look through these. But this is an important point to make, simply not based on which colleges ranked where, but just a sense of an overall theme across all the responses in the survey was that there was concerns around how colleges and departments did things and whether or not it was consistent with the university guidelines. And similarly, there was quite a spread in efficiency. Okay, so the rest of what I'll say is to give you just a flavor of some of the most recurring themes. Again, there were 670 some responses, so I can't kind of capture them all here, but just a sense of how they binned and what a lot of them were that kind of feed into what Heather presented to you already. So 39% of responses had to do with the department and college handling a promotion and tenure and how and whether it aligned efficiently or well with respect to the university level guidelines. You'll notice that 24% said no change at all. So that one of the distribution of that comment was don't change it, keep it the way it is. So there was a 24% comment to that level. And then everything else falls out over dossier. They're all under 10%, but they were recurring. So dossier, mentorship and training, timeline. There was a pretty strong, given the number of APT faculty, there's a pretty strong APT signal in there talking about the APT process and teaching evaluations. I don't know if I get to teaching evaluations with you here, but I can certainly talk about that. So department and college, improved guideline alignment. And this is my binning of themes. So it's taking all the comments that were there and coming up with themes that showed up multiple times. So improve guideline alignment across all levels. Ask for letters in a timely way. Ensure confidentiality in the process. Pursuit of promotion is the prerogative of the candidate. So candidates expressed circumstances where they knew that or they were under the impression that faculty were asked not to go up or that sort of thing, when in fact it is the prerogative of the candidate to do so. Clearly communicate deadlines. There was a strong frequent message of there should be track specific representation in the guidelines on committees. So the APT faculty were saying that they needed representation on their own committees, and that that the guidelines and materials should reflect what's expected of the candidate. So if I'm not a tenure track faculty member and I'm putting in my packet, I shouldn't have to write this page is blank or something like that, that I simply should not have to put in that component because it's not part of my requirements. And then it came up multiple times that there should be an enforcement of holistic review of teaching. Teaching should not simply be the student course evaluation data and numbers of classes taught, that there ought to be an actual investigation of the quality of the faculty members teaching across all the different parameters that the guidelines express. Okay, so from dossier, there were comments about reducing paperwork, less duplication across the components, to simplify input to Interfolio and make it accessible to faculty. Remove summary tables. There was a lot of comments about grant tables and teaching tables being automatic, and that there shouldn't have to be, if something's in multiple places, it should only have to exist in one place. Mentorship and training, there was a lot of comments about a lack of mentoring or haphazard mentoring in the process that they'd experienced. One strong signal was that there ought to be on-demand training, walking the candidate through the process. And so what I took that to mean is not, a one-time workshop or something, but rather if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm putting together a component, I can click on a little video that tells me about how to do it or that sort of thing. Conflicting comments over training for unit committees. So what I want to say there is there were explicit statements of all the P&T committees ought to be trained on bias and ought to receive stripe training or ought to receive some kind of training about the guidelines. And then there were also comments that said, please do not require training for P&T committees because they foresaw. So there were those conflicting comments in the remarks. Clarify the route for mentorship of faculty. So faculty expressed a sense of not knowing how and whether to be mentored, or a sense of having missed out on things because no one had told them, and that they didn't know until after the fact that they should have been looking for that information from others. Establish accountability for process knowledge. So this was a signal of what good is it if my mentor doesn't know how the process runs, or if my P&T chair gives me wrong information, that kind of thing. Timeline, there was a lot of requests for a virtual tracking system. 9-month faculty expressed a sense that they should not be expected to work on P&T during unpaid months. Earlier requests for external letters, that came out in a couple of different ways. One of them was just that they need to be requested earlier to ensure they are gotten. And then there were at least a couple of comments about people expecting that P&T deliberations had occurred, even though all the letters weren't in yet, which of course would be explicitly against the university guidelines. Earlier release of the timeline at the beginning of the spring semester, and then the calendar must be followed. There should be a clear calendar and it must be followed, which Heather then represented in her changes, her suggested changes. The APT faculty creating track-specific guideline documents, track-specific forms, APT representation on committees, and then clarity for department committee about track-specific expectations. So if the guidelines are not already clear about what it means to be excellent with respect to the responsibilities of the APT faculty relative to that same expectation under tenured faculty, then there needs to be clarity. Consistency between appointment letters and the promotion and tenure process. So there was quite a few comments along those lines of, if I'm hired to do one thing, my promotion and tenure ought to be evaluating me on the thing I've been hired to do, and I should be able to make a case for it as an APT faculty member. Okay, and then finally, I just want to take a moment to thank Baman Sari. He's in the Center for Teaching Excellence. He's a postdoctoral scholar, and he helped to create some of these graphics and to help analyze the data. Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you so much. We'll now open the floor to questions or comments from senators. Please use the raise hands function and wait until you're recognized by Senator Klein. Then unmute your mic and to speak. Do we have questions?
I have a couple questions that were posted in the chat to me directly. So the first one is with respect, yeah, just a second. I apologize here. So one of the comments was, first of all, faculty mentors should receive some kind of official training to be effective in the tenure and promotion process. And then the second question, I think, applies to tenure at arrival. So how will the university make sure the arm's length letter writers have no specific professional relationship with the candidate being reviewed? And why are only 3 arm's length letters required, not the 6 that are required for typical tenure and promotion?
So currently the process is to have the 3 arm's length in addition to the reference letters. And we are proposing to transition that so that it could be the 3 reference letters, as long as they address the tenure questions. And the reason to do that would be that to expedite the tenure review for people that we are recruiting here at the tenure level, and particularly those who are eminent scholars and recognized by highly prestigious awards in their field that mark their excellence.
So Senator Miranda had his hand up first.
In the past, we've had circumstances that have come to grievance processes where faculty have not been able to receive the required number of evaluation letters for their promotion and tenure. And one of the issues that gets raised then is that that person may not be of sufficient stature if people are not willing to write a letter. And that's something that probably should be explicitly kind of changed or forbidden. My sense is that it's actually quite hard to get letter writers to write these letters. And we shouldn't make an assumption of faculty inadequacy if letters are not, if adequate numbers of letters are not obtained.
Senator Alvarado had his hand up next.
Hi, let me go back to the question I posted through Zoom here about the arm's length letter writers. It is my understanding that anybody going off for promotion, I'm not talking about tenure on arrival, I'm talking about people going off for promotion or tenure, that all the letters should be from external reviewers, right? So how does the university make sure that these letter writers have no direct relationship with the person being reviewed for promotion or tenure? I mean, in other words, we don't want former advisors or co-authors to be the letter writers. How do we have a system in place to make sure that these people don't have a direct relationship with the person being reviewed? Or
if I may, that's the responsibility of the department head and the tenure and promotion committee to make sure that you get arm's length letters. And regarding one of the questions that is being posted for tenure upon hire, 3 letters, 3 references when we try for the hiring process, if they address the tenure issue, that will count towards 3, and then you get 3 additional letters.
okay, thank you.
And I'm hopeful with the switch to requesting the letters through Interfolio, one of the advantages of having it there is that there's a checklist before the letters go out to help ensure that the reviewers are arm's length and meet the recommendations. So that would occur before the letters are requested.
So something was posted directly to me in the chat, and it says, there was a remark about the candidate's choice to proceed in spite of feedback, presumably that they shouldn't continue to wish to go up. There should be guidance to make sure that the candidate then does not blame the department head or committee if the outcome is not favorable.
The candidate has right to pursue, I mean, period. You know, you can counsel them, but they have right to pursue. It's their prerogative, whether it is for tenure or for promotion.
The comments in the P&T survey, a lot of them really grouped mostly with the APT comments. So these were about being an APT faculty member. And what I remember one of them said, it wasn't until I went to a workshop that I realized that I could talk to my department head about when I should go up, and that they indicated that they had been in their position for quite a number of years, right? So I think that's part of it, is that, you know, the candidate needs to know that they have the prerogative to put forward a dossier once they've met whatever probationary period or whatever is necessary.
So I had one other comment in the chat that someone who joined late says, for APT faculty promotion, do the university guidelines require letters for promotion or not?
They do not, only for research titles.
So then if that's the case, why is that so?
So
You have internal letters, because if they are engaged in teaching activity, the internal letters can provide that information.
So there's no external letters, but there are internal letters required.
Yeah.
there's no requirement of letters at the university level for APT faculty members unless they are research faculty, and then they require the same letters as is the case for tenured faculty that do research in the current guidelines.
Senator Alvarado has his hand raised.
Yes, does the university provide any kind of formal training for mentors, faculty mentors? And let me explain where I come from. What I have seen over the years is that some of these faculty mentors, they have their own opinions or their own way of doing things, and sometimes it's not the most effective way of advising or mentoring younger faculty. I have seen that, right, to the point that the department head has to intervene to get the candidate on the right track. So I think what is happening in some of the units is lack of training. They don't really know how to mentor other faculty members. So
if I may, I'd like to answer that question. Yes, so the university has invested a great deal in mentoring training. And if you go to the Center for Teaching Excellence website, there's an area. We have something called the Faculty Mentoring Academy, which is about faculty mentoring faculty. We have another academy called the Graduate Mentoring Academy, which is about faculty mentoring graduate students. And we also have we've piloted a program on leading a mentoring culture in your department with department heads, which we just completed this last go round, and we expect to do again next year. So in fact, yes, we have a lot of investment in mentoring and a continued area.
yeah, that's good. But the training is not mandatory, right? So for mentors, right?
No, but if you happen to want to have some mentoring training, we have it available for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Banerjee has his hand raised.
Yeah, this is related to the remark that Dr. Anand made about candidates' prerogative to apply. I agree with that sentiment, but I believe somewhere in the training or some informational session that they attend, they should be made very clear that if the outcome is not favorable based on the feedback, that they should take it take that outcome as is and not go about start blaming others for their decision. That's something which we have seen, and this is something that we need to educate everyone who's applying or planning to go up. And if they receive feedback which is contrary to what they think, they should also know the consequences if the outcome is not good.
So at this point, that is all the hands that have been raised. And I think all the questions that were posed in the chat, I think, have been addressed.
Okay, well, Doctors Anand and Lynch and Wilkerson, well, actually one hand went up.
Yeah,
Again,
just a quick request, if I may. Can we get a copy of the presentation somehow, or can you post them through the
yes,
faculty, whatever website? Okay, thank you.
we will. I saw NK reply to that earlier. So I would like to thank the three of you for taking time, and I would like to note what Dr. Wilkinson put in the chat a while back. At least I believe it was she who did it, which is this is in the proposal stage, and they are welcoming feedback. So I think your feedback today is really valuable. And if something else occurs to you in the days ahead, I would urge you to go ahead and send that to Faculty Affairs, because I think that everyone is concerned with improving the process as we streamline it.
And just to put, put a fine point on it, it's in the suggestion stage for academic year 2024. The current ongoing cycle would not be affected by these suggestions.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. We have no announcements today, so we'll hit the speaker comments. Colleagues, thank you for joining us today. A day that for many of you is nearing the end of your summer break. Once again, we're about to begin another stressful academic year with a highly contagious variant of COVID continuing to circulate, a new epidemic of monkeypox, and a massive reorganization of the university. Several of you have asked about the voluntary COVID statement for syllabi for fall. It has been approved for use and can be found on the Senate website under minimum syllabus requirements. It's at the very bottom of the page. Also, the REDCap system is being revived by the university for students to self-report positive COVID tests. Although there are many unknowns associated with monkeypox, our health services has posted an informative FAQ online that should help students navigate this healthcare issue. If a student does contract the disease, CDC guidelines call for 2 to 4 weeks of isolation. So there's the potential for significant impact on a student's academic situation. My hope is that faculty will be flexible and understanding if students find themselves in that difficult circumstance. Today, we're also confronting another serious campus issue, the need for significant improvement in shared governance. The proposed resolution from the Executive Committee, responding to concerns expressed by many of you and other faculty members, is on the agenda for action later this afternoon. And finally, in an effort to balance the equalizing effect of meeting online and its advantages for those in remote locations, with the desire of many for more collegiality that comes from in-person sessions, the EC is bringing a proposal for your consideration that would maintain online business meetings while adding new opportunities for in-person Senate gatherings. That too will be up for a vote later this afternoon. In closing the comment section, I want to wish all of you at least some relaxation before the semester begins. I continue to be so proud of our entire faculty and the tremendous effort you and others continually give to overcome challenges. Moving to approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the July 11th meeting minutes found in attachment B? Hearing none, then I declare the minutes approved as distributed. Now for the consent agenda. Are there any questions or concerns on the August 8th consent agenda items? Hearing no questions or concerns, I declare the August consent agenda approved as presented. The core curriculum course report can be found in attachment C. Are there any questions or concerns about the course report? Hearing none, I declare the report approved as submitted. Moving on to new business. The first item is the approval of changes and bylaws to the Legislative and Research Committees found in attachments D1 and D2. Secretary Epstein, please move to approve the changes.
I move approval of attachment D1 and D2, which are the bylaws changes to the Legislative Committee found in D1 and the bylaw changes to the Research Committee found in D2.
Secretary Epstein has moved attachments D1 and D2. Is there any discussion?
Senator Hale has raised his hand.
Howdy, y'all. Is there work being done on a bylaw change to the executive committee?
I believe that the bylaws committee is working its way through the definition of all committees. So I expect that there will be changes coming forward over time for all of them.
Okay, because I find the current executive committee to be out of order with Constitution bylaws. Constitution Part 2, Section E, Paragraph 2.A reads in part, with no more than 2 members of the executive committee from any one electoral unit. There are 4 from the College of Arts and Science.
There certainly will be a conflict as of September 1. So is there any further discussion on the proposed changes on the agenda for today?
Does Angie Hill Price have wish to speak? Her hand went up for a second.
No, thank you.
Senator Klein, will you please launch the poll?
So it looks like it has stabilized. So I'm going to end the poll and share the results.
Okay, with those results, the changes to the bylaws are approved. The next item of new business is the resolution on shared governance, which can be found in attachment D3. Secretary Epstein, please read the resolution and move it for approval.
Whereas shared governance is no longer functioning as envisioned by faculty at Texas A&M University, and whereas both the AAU and AAUP recognize the inescapable interdependence of all shareholders at a university, and whereas sustainable and lasting change at a major university comes not via presidential decree, but rather by developing collective buy-in for new ideas from its constituent groups. And as the AAU emphasizes, quote, by including multiple constituencies in the decision-making processes, the university can ensure that different voices are heard and integrated into a cohesive vision. Shared governance thus provides the mechanisms to support the university's autonomy, enabling the institution to fulfill its educational, research, and service missions, end quote. Whereas that failure to achieve buy-in was underscored by reorganization plans for the main campus and Qatar, neither of which sought faculty input in advance or heeded many of the faculty concerns raised afterwards, and whereas President Banks' apparent lack of commitment to meaningful shared governance has promulgated a mistrust of future administrative decisions, and whereas the perception that faculty voices do not matter may engender a long-term problem for faculty participation in university, college, school, and departmental governance, and whereas an absence of shared governance threatens to heighten anxiety among faculty, staff, and students, and whereas the problem has been exacerbated by lack of transparency, including the president waiting 15 months after taking office to share her vision for the future of the university, and whereas this apparent disdain for shared governance is likely to reduce the confidence of faculty and other stakeholders that broadly supported decisions are being made by the administration. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Faculty Senate of Texas A&M University calls on President Banks to demonstrate a new commitment to shared governance by engaging faculty early in the process in the decisions affecting their academic lives, and be it further resolved that the Faculty Senate remains committed to advocating for the faculty of Texas A&M University, regardless of whether the university leadership chooses to heed our advice, and be it further resolved that the Faculty Senate requests President Banks to direct all levels of administration at Texas A&M University to engage in meaningful efforts to improve shared governance and restore trust in the decision-making process. I move to approve the resolutions found in attachment D3.
Secretary Epstein has moved the attachment. Is there discussion?
Senator Alvarado has raised his hand.
Hi. Yeah, I'm reading the proposed resolution. Moving forward, if this gets approved, what are we trying to achieve? Are we trying to give a hard time to the president, trying to scorn her? I mean, what is the long-term plan here? I mean, we have done this before in the past, right? Under different administrations, but what is the long-term plan? I guess at the end of the day, we need to have a two-way conversation with the president about many topics, right? So I don't know if this is going to resolve anything. That's my opinion, obviously. So I want to hear from others as well. What are we trying to achieve with this resolution? Get some attention from the press, or I don't know. That's my question.
If you would like me to respond to that, Jorge, I will give you my view, and I think it is an effort to, in a sense, hit a reset button here to try and have a more involved shared governance process. What does that mean? It means bringing in faculty earlier in when decisions are being made about their academic lives, and it means it doesn't mean we're going to in the end agree on everything as faculty and administration, but I think it does mean that the concerns we raise are listened to seriously, and if a decision is made to go the other way, the decision is explained so that there is a high degree of transparency in the process.
Thanks.
Senator Gaddy had her hand raised next.
I just had a question kind of to the executive committee about how those conversations with the president may have gone in the last several months. I know that the planning committee had sent an email and a proposal to the executive committee to try to address this when there were specific duties in the planning committee that suggested that we needed to be, based on our bylaws, we needed to be involved in some of the conversations that were being had. And we requested that people from either the planning committee specifically or the faculty senate specifically to be represented on each of the working groups. And I don't think that that happened, but it's clear that from that request that the need for the shared governance, the request for the shared governance was clearly provided, I'm sure, to the president, and this is still where we are. So I'm similar to Senator Alvarado. I'm still wondering, she could just say, yeah, sure, fine. Yeah, let's hit the reset button and let's go. And do we have faith in that process? Do we have faith that's going to make any difference? I mean, I'm just, maybe folks that have been involved in those conversations at the EC level could communicate something a little that would make us feel a little bit better about such a resolution having a greater impact because it's coming from the entire Senate. What are you guys thinking about it? I'm not particularly comfortable with this having the potential effect that it may be intended. Thanks.
Does Dr. Hill Price wish to respond to that? Anybody from the executive committee?
Well, I know that the speaker did communicate that, and Dale can of course correct me, but we did request that there be senators placed on every committee, and that the communication, the concern from the planning committee was put forward. I think the important thing here, I know it's a resolution, right? And it's asking for us to recognize the need for shared governance, but the discussion was to say, I think there's a key point there early in the process as well, to say we need to be partners on the decisioning. We need to have an opportunity to engage together, and we need to say it. In my opinion, that's what the executive committee, and please y'all correct me, that it would be very helpful to have a clear statement that just saying, hey, we really need to have this happen early in the process. It is not our perception that this has happened early in the process, and that hopefully this will prompt an opportunity for a discussion and a reset, as Dale said. So I think this is, maybe the first step in a long step. I don't know, but we did make those requests.
I can also respond from the executive committee if you want me to. And I want to be fair. So I would like to say that the administration was willing to put faculty senate members on any of the committees that we said that we really needed it on. So we want to be fair in that respect. And I also want to be fair in saying that I have noticed a huge attempt to be better at this process. A lot of that with bringing NK in and trying to help serve that. And me being from engineering is a little bit more used to how President Banks and NK work. But I think what this resolution is doing is, rather than representing one person or some experiences, it is representing how the faculty as a whole are feeling right now, and that is the perception. And even if I don't necessarily feel the same way, or because I'm in engineering, I have different experience, it is my job to represent the faculty of the whole. And I've talked to many, many, many people, and this is how people are feeling right now. And so that is the perception. And so I think we need to figure out how to move forward to change that perception. And to, so that's just my perspective. And Angie's shaking her head, so I think she agreed with what I just said.
Thanks. Your input's very helpful.
Dr. Anand, would you like to comment?
Well, since the Qatar was called out, individually, I would like to respond in terms of what we did in terms of faculty shared governance. On October 5th, 2021, Dr. Banks met with Dr. Malave, asked him to come up with a proposal to make the Qatar faculty compliant and make it same as the A&M faculty here on main campus, and plus, put more emphasis on engineering and engineering research. So he came up with a white paper, and then he distributed some time right before Thanksgiving to the Qatar faculty. That was meant to be for feedback. That was misinterpreted, and people went to press. And Dr. Malave didn't even have an opportunity here in this firm to respond when one individual kept speaking for more than 30 minutes, if I remember right. And then we had the erstwhile Dean of Faculty open for feedback. So we got the faculty feedback. And then the Provost Scott appointed the ad hoc committee. And the ad hoc committee took its own time, and then they came up with a thoughtful report, and that report was considered. Taking all these things into consideration, Dr. Banks made the decision she made on July 14th. Now, whether we agree or you agree or disagree, that's a different question. So there was ample faculty feedback, and this was part of the process. That's all I would like to say. Thank you.
And I just wanted to respond to NK. And I'm familiar a little bit more with what went on in Qatar, and I think the actions were correct in terms of what was possible and what was not. But again, it's the faculty. Things are not being communicated so that the faculty can understand what's going on. Since there's still a lack of a feeling of transparency. So whether, so that I think that's again just getting across that there is a perception that the faculty are feeling a little bad right now, and they just want to figure out how to solve this because they want to move forward.
Speaker has my cell phone number. I'm willing to come and answer 24/7. And President Banks was supposed to come, but she was grieving loss of her mother. That's why she didn't come.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Last executive committee meeting. And Speaker knows that I offered to come to the executive committee meeting. And I am a phone call away. I am readily available. I will tell you what I know. And you may not agree with me. That's a different story. But there was a shared governance. There was a feedback for the Qatar process. That I can tell you with certainty.
Mm-hmm.
Senator Kolozinski has his hand raised next.
Right. So I would like to make 2 points. One, it's not just Qatar. All right. There's a pattern of decisions being made without consultation of people who understand the facts on the ground. And there's what happened in our very own Mays Business School search when you didn't want to follow the rules, which said you had to run an election for the faculty who were supposed to sit on the committee. And I had to sponsor an emergency resolution here at the Senate to get you guys to follow the SAP. And now, because you don't like to follow the rules of the SAP, you're going to propose getting rid of the faculty election for the search committee. So, I mean, those kinds of actions just do not foster trust. And I'd just like to point out one other thing. I think it's actually in President Banks's best interest to do more to seek faculty feedback earlier, because there's several, I don't want to get into details, but there's several decisions she's made where she didn't have very good information about the facts on the ground. And she would have had that information had she engaged faculty who are knowledgeable in the process earlier on, or students in the case of the student newspaper, she didn't even know that the student newspaper had contractual obligations with advertisers to keep running a printed edition, and she just unilaterally decided to make a decision, which was not a major decision, not something that I care that much about, to suspend print, but without even talking to the editors yes, Angie, I know. Dr. Anand, Angie had it in the chat, to clarify, the SAP says that the majority of the faculty on the committee have to be elected, not all the members. That is correct. But NK did not even want to run an election for that majority of the faculty. I have the email. He said to me, the only guarantee he would give me is that a faculty member would have to receive 1 vote to be considered elected. Okay. Those kinds of communications, those kinds of responses just do not generate trust. So it would be good if we see a change in behavior going forward, because I mean, this is something that's always going to be in the background. Was it what happened to the chancellor back in 2009? What happened to a chancellor can happen to a president too. Just to keep that in mind. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Dr. Kolsinski, your points are well noted. The reason I proposed the changes from election to nominated is because of what happened in your school, because some of the department heads sent an email campaigning for them to be elected on the search committee. And when you have a power differential, that doesn't sit well, right? And we don't want to make sure that it is well represented, not concentrated by one particular department or so. And this is just in a discussion stage. And I had a long chat with Speaker Rice, and he said that he will come up with a different language, and we are working together. It is not a done deal. It is a proposal. We cannot hear you.
Here, NK, my point was that in your email to me, you said that to be considered elected under the rule that was currently written, a faculty member would only have to receive 1 vote. I mean, that's almost like, I took that as an insult, frankly. I mean, and I think most people would. And I understand your motivations for it, but actions like that.
In your college, Adam.
I know you did. And but it took an emergency resolution. It shouldn't have to take such an extraordinary measure just to get you guys to follow rules. That's the point. Do you understand? I mean, that's why this feeling that you're getting arises from situations like this. Now, I hope that in the future we can we've had a meeting, and I see that we understand each other, but this is the kind of thing that's led to this. Just so you understand.
Senator Miranda has his hand raised.
So one of the things that I consider when thinking about whether administration is being successful is are the lives of the faculty and the students better today than before Dr. Banks took office? And in many ways, I think that's not the case. I mean, I see a lot of different things that are not quite working well or working worse. I'm concerned that really what is happening is a decrease in the confidence of the competence of the administration, and that decreasing confidence can spiral downwards. I understand, Dr. Anand has made a good case for how the administration is listening to the faculty and students. But if it seems as if decisions are routinely made that do not seem to reflect that feedback, then it's easy to believe that the feedback has no value in the decision process. So administration ultimately claims independence of making decisions, but if they do not reflect or consistently do not reflect a feedback of the faculty and other stakeholders, then it is at least apparent, it may not be real, but at least apparent that it is not shared governance.
Senator Ware had his hand raised next.
Thank you for recognizing me. I mean, I tend to agree here with Senator Alvarado and Senator Gaddy. It's like, what do we really expect to achieve from this? What if the administration simply says no, or just basically gives us lip service of, yes, we'll take that under advisement, but nothing changes? I mean, because what the wording in this right now, to use naval terms, this isn't a shot across the bow, it's a broadside. And so what are we, one, what are we expecting? And two, what are we going to do if our expectations are not met? Thank you.
Senator McGill has his hand raised next.
Yeah, I was wanting to point out that this stuff still seems to be happening, in that there's an undergraduate program in my department in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, which is plant pathology and microbiology, where there were two tracks for the BESC undergraduates. And unbeknownst to all the students, the faculty involved in teaching in my department, as far as I know at least, were not alerted even that they were going to take one of the track and move it to a whole different, I don't know, college or school or whatever it is. And when you think about the fact that we're told that student-teacher ratios have a big thing on hiring when they start moving people from your students to somebody else's students, that's not a good sign. And as far as I can tell, nobody knew about it. Same sort of thing with BIMS. Two local doctors now have told me that they thought that BIMS was the best thing that ever happened to them when they came to Texas A&M, and they ended up learning stuff that was taught in BIMS that ended up on the board exams they had. So they were what's going on? Thank you.
Senator Collins has his hand raised next.
Thank you. It's one of those things that when our College of Science and now the Arts and Science, this resolution went out to the masses here, and I've actually had more senators faculty members reach out to me via email while I've been traveling and saying, hey, this is exactly how we feel. So while maybe some of us in here don't feel, I completely agree with the sentiments that it is our colleagues and us as representatives of our colleagues, they're the ones feeling this angst just as much, and we are that voice in here. And if they feel helpless, also, I've had a couple of them email me today, and one sentiment that I've been hearing, and I hear my mother's voice in this more than anything, really there's a difference between hearing and listening. And I think what has been going on with a lot of the administration is they are hearing our concerns, but there may not be that listening side. And I had that resonated with me when my colleague brought that up. And I think that's kind of where we are currently are, that the administration is hearing, but this resolution is more about listening and understanding that side. And I think that's why we went forward with this.
So maybe I'll say a couple words since I'm here. I don't think the executive committee really wanted to write this resolution, but I think we're very concerned about some of the directions that things seem to be going, and we're not sure it's going to get better. And for those of you who wonder what good this resolution can have, I don't think we can give any, we don't know what it will do. It may not do anything, but I don't think that should prevent us from not going forward with it. Senator Falvo has her hand raised.
Thank you. I just want to request that folks take a look in the chat. I know that in Zoom, we're working with a new kind of structure here, but there has been a lot of support for this in the chat as well. And I want to emphasize the issue that while we can dig into specific instances of where this has happened, and I think a lot of faculty would be willing to contribute specific instances of where this has happened, this is no longer a matter of specific instances, right? This is a matter of sentiment. And I'm hearing from a great deal of faculty, but I'll be honest, also a great deal of students, that there is a lack of trust in the administration. And when there's a lack of trust between faculty and the administration, it lowers the amount of trust between faculty and students. And when you lower the amount of trust between faculty and students, you can no longer teach. So I'm very concerned about this, and I very much so support this resolution. But I think that it's against many of our instincts when we are taught to look, very specific and very data points, and those things do exist. But I want to encourage us to think about this as a sentiment as well, because that sentiment is very widespread and very important at the moment.
Senator Alvarado has his hand raised.
Yes. I'm wondering if some of these issues of lack of communication between the administration and the faculty are driven by the preeminence of other stakeholders, right? So like former students, donors, other people out there that somehow they want to control the university, and they use the administration for that purpose. And because of that, we're on the losing side of the stick, right? So is that true? Maybe we need to expand the conversation, right? What is the elephant in the room, right? Because right now it looks like we only have two parties to this problem, right? The administration and the faculty. But I think there's more than that, right? So I don't think the administration would like to be in this position right now, right? Where there's perception of lack of communication, lack of concern for faculty. I think there's more to that. So I would like to know what's going on. Maybe they can have a meeting with us off the record somewhere and let us know what's going on. So that's my point. Okay, thank you.
Senator Miranda raised his hand.
I'm just addressing the previous point. So one of the whispers going around among faculty in the absence of any information to the contrary is that this has to do with angst from some big donors. And so perhaps NK might be able to address that. Is there a push for some of this from powerful big donors?
Can tell you that not that I am aware of, and I have not been in any conversations where this has come up.
I'm glad to hear that, because that's certainly one of the whispers in the absence of information that's been going around.
Senator Hammond has her hand raised next.
And yeah, I think that's what was just says a really important part about the alternative explanations that faculty start to make up, and that's not helping the administration when the faculty make up alternative things that just are not true, just out of the fear and need for a narrative and an explanation. So one of the things I did put in the chat, and maybe we create a working group with some key members from administration and faculty to think of some creative ways to increase that communication and confidence, trust, transparency, all that.
I'm going to leap in to make one note following Tracy, though. I don't think that this is manufactured by faculty in the absence of information. I think all you have to do is go back to the spring and look at the investigative journalism conducted by our student journalists at the battalion, who got access to emails and minutes from outside organizations who were boasting about their ability to impact what was happening at the university. So I do think, and I'm glad that they are not directly bringing those to NK and some other people, but I do think that the perception wasn't just imagined by people. There was a lot of supporting evidence that came there.
I was talking just more broadly in general about all the different things of, people needing narratives and some of them perhaps not correct.
I believe Senator Kolozinski had his hand up, but I guess he lowered it.
Well, that's okay. I'll say it anyway. I mean, so there's an elephant in the room. In 2009, a chancellor received a no confidence vote and he was gone shortly thereafter. So I think everyone should think that this ultimately, I don't want this to go there. I don't think anyone should want that. And I don't think, and I want President Banks to succeed. And I want her to succeed. But if things keep going the way they're going, things could go that way. I see this resolution as a way of trying to avoid that outcome.
Senator Hill Price.
So I would just say that because some of us were around in the Senate when that happened, it was a different scenario, but I understand what you're saying, Adam. And I would, again, encourage you all to vote for the resolution because, again, if you look at the greater faculty, they are concerned. And I sincerely believe that this will be an opportunity for a reset. It's an opportunity. I hope that the administration will want to engage on a working group or things like that to see how we can partner to move forward in a better way. But we can do what we can do, right? So I hope that this is an opportunity for that reset. Thank you.
Senator Haney has his hand raised.
Thank you, Senator Klein. I just want to add a different perspective than what we've discussed. I'm fully in support of the resolution, but one other aspect you may want to consider is that the administration may not be or may be subject to other downward forces. If you go back and look at legislative sessions, the lieutenant governor and his war on tenure and all of that, that could be a lot of the pressure on the administration to be a functionary. And so they're having to balance our demands versus those of the legislature vis-a-vis the regents, conducting and trying to satisfy those masters as well. So, they may not be completely the bad guy here, but there are other factors outside. To go back to what Jorge was trying to get at, the elephant in the room is let's not forget about the state government that is pressuring some of these changes and driving these changes as well. And I support the resolution because it does give voice to our concerns and maybe a counter to some of that. Thank you.
At this point, go ahead, Dale.
I was going to say, I see no other hands, so I would bring the discussion to a close and ask you, Senator Klein, to please launch the poll.
Oops, just 1 second. Wants me to share the results of the last poll. Let me see if I can launch the poll again. That's interesting. Relaunch poll. There we go. It is, oh, do we have another vote? People are still voting, just so people to understand. If anybody hasn't voted, please do. Oops. Okay, it looks like it hasn't, oh, just changed again, sorry. Okay, it looks like we're done. Dale, can you see the results?
I can, with 80% voting yes, the resolution is adopted. Okay, final item of new business is the fall meeting schedule found in attachment D4. Secretary Epstein, please move approval of attachment D4.
I move approval of attachment D4.
Okay, discussion on the meeting schedule. As I noted much earlier during comments, this was the EC's effort for this current academic year to take a look at could we develop some new things in person, and could we continue the business meetings? I think the EC believes that in a sense, Zoom is a real equalizer. It allows people in the remote locations to be on the same footing with those who are in a room in College Station. So we put our thoughts down. We're bringing it forward as a proposal to you all.
Senator Falvo has her hand raised.
Senator Klein, thank you for recognizing me. I just want to say, as a member of one of the remote campuses, thank you very much. This is a real equalizer for us. It really does allow us to put forward our concerns. And I think being an equalizer for us makes the Faculty Senate more effective as a whole. So I just wanted to say that I'm really grateful. I know that it can be hard for people to embrace new technologies. I know that this means that we can't actually literally rub elbows and get coffee, but I'm really grateful for this change. And I speak for the campus.
Senator Burke has his hand raised.
You're muted.
Also representing a remote campus with the law school, I want to echo Senator Falvo's comments that it's a great help for participation, and the fact that there's not, the Zoom contingent over on one side and the live contingent on the other, and it's been very helpful. And I also appreciate the fact that this plan does provide for live meetings, because I fully agreed in the value of having the live interaction and the collegiality. And I think this is a nice mix where we do the business here on Zoom, but we specifically plan for those in-person proceedings. So I'm grateful for this plan, and I certainly support it.
Senator Miranda has his hand raised.
I also generally support having this on Zoom, but just one bit of caution. Some of you might remember from the EC a few years ago, there was a lot of pressure to close off the meeting and not have it public. And that came from the provost's office, I believe. And I just want to, like a commitment from all of us and from the EC that this will not in any way prevent public access to these meetings, because that's part of what makes this so powerful is the public availability of this information. And it's easier to contain if it's all digital.
Yeah, I want to assure you, Rajesh, there is no underlying effort to in any way close these meetings to the public. I think as someone who is devoted to transparency, I think it's an absolutely critical aspect that this be open, that our meetings be open to all faculty and to students, staff, anybody else who wants to view them through the live stream. And we know from our previous experience that the live stream on occasion has brought in hundreds of people. And I think that has just phenomenal value.
Senator Rao had her hand raised for a second. I don't know if she's still with us. That's all I see, Dale.
All right, then with no more discussion, Senator Klein, would you launch the poll, please?
Okay, I think we have some stability. Oops, another person just, every time I say it, somebody comes in. Give it another few seconds. Okay, I think we're good.
Okay, with those results, then it's clear that the Senate meeting plan has passed, and that's what we will follow this year. And then in May, take a look and ask ourselves if it worked the way we wanted or if there are changes that we need to make. Finally, to make sure you're aware of the proposed changes, we included as an information item the standard administrative procedure for the appointment of deans, which can be found in attachment D5. The proposed revisions include several that have concerned the executive committee. And as noted by NK earlier, he and I've discussed that, and we're going to be collaborating to see if there's not a way that we can resolve that that works for all of us. So I see NK, you have your hand raised. Would you like to add?
Yeah, the changes that proposed there are not anything backhanded or done in any cowardly fashion. It is done in an open fashion. The reason is that the Mass Business School, some department heads sent emails asking faculty to nominate for them with the power differential, and some domineering faculty members lobbied to get elected on the search committee. And this is the reason why I proposed those changes, right? So you don't have to agree to that, and we can work together. And as Dale has agreed that he will propose an alternative language, and we will work together to come up with the best possible document. And the second thing is that I want to emphasize in the interest of transparency is Dr. Kim Scott is a faculty. I am a faculty member. We have our own teaching. We have our own research. We don't get up in the morning to see how to mess up people. So we are transparent, and we want to move the needle. Thank you.
Senator Hanneman had her hand raised.
Yeah, sorry. So I appreciate what's going on with the dean's SAP, but I would want to just make sure what is also on the table, and NK has actually said that this would be part of it in past, but just reminding that before the dean of faculty's position was a dean, and then would automatically include that faculty would be representative on the selection of the dean of faculties. And now that position has been changed to a VP position, which can just be appointed. And so it was done perfectly well when NK was chosen, because there was a lot of, there were faculty representing on that committee, but it doesn't mean the next president couldn't just appoint one. And so we want to be able to protect that role is really needs to have faculty inputs, and that role is representing the faculty and protecting us.
Senator Kolazinski has his hand raised.
Yes, I would just like to point out that I don't follow NK's reasoning for his desire for the change. The vote for search committee was secret, so the power differential between a department head and members of the faculty of the department is completely irrelevant. The department head has no idea who votes for her or who doesn't. Furthermore, in this occasion, the reason why all the department head did was tell other faculty that she would be willing to serve if elected. That is all she did. And this was done before there was a verification process put in place as to whether or not the people who would be voted for would actually wanted to serve. In the initial process that was done, we were allowed to nominate 2 people before the election, or maybe, I think it was maybe even more than that. There was a nomination process, but there was no vetting process as to whether or not the nominees actually wanted to serve. So the department head, my department head, wanted to let people know that she would be willing to serve and that their votes wouldn't be wasted if they voted for her. NK interpreted this as campaigning, and I will, it's hard for me, but I will accept that he did so in good faith, but it was not campaigning. And it was motivated specifically because there was no process by which nominations would be checked. Nominees would be checked if they were willing to serve before the vote took place. The other argument NK has put forward for this change is that it wouldn't allow for the committee to be representative, but the rule as written only, as Angie has pointed out several times, only requires a majority of the faculty on the committee to be elected. That means that the administration NK has the ability to nominate additional faculty, appoint additional faculty other than those elected. There were initially 7 faculty on this search committee. 4 were elected, 3 were appointed. Say if all 4 elected members were full professors, you can very easily appoint an assistant professor, an APT faculty member, and an associate professor, and you've got a representative committee. I don't think that this argument for flexibility to make the committee representative holds any water whatsoever. I think it is absolutely essential that a majority of the faculty on this committee be elected, because that again gives trust in the process. NK, you have a situation right now where trust in the administration is very low. You may think that that's unwarranted, and perhaps you're right. But the reality of the situation is that the faculty really don't trust you right now. A lot of us don't anyway. And so, that makes it very important for us to ensure that there's going to be people on that committee who are not chosen by you, but who are in fact elected by us. If you and Kathy are in any way interested in trying to repair this relationship moving forward, which I really hope you are, because I want you to succeed, I would implore you to withdraw this change, because this change is only going to erode trust in the administration further. Another change in this that I would like to point out is they want to remove language that requires the search to begin promptly. Now, this is again very problematic because it creates a situation where we're under interim leadership for extended periods of time. By the time our search in the Mays Business School will have been finished, we'll have been under interim leadership for 2 years, approximately, give or take a few months. That's not good for any college. Interim leaders cannot make big decisions. They are effectively caretakers. It's not their fault. That's just the nature of the position. And that is why when I initially helped write this dean and department head selection rule, I wanted to see that promptly in there as well, so that we wouldn't have this situation of endless interims, interim after interim after interim, which is just not healthy for a college. So again, NK, I implore you, if you want to restore trust in the faculty, please, please, please withdraw these amendments. And frankly, I will sponsor resolutions opposing them if you don't, and I suspect I'm going to get very high votes for those. Thank you.
Adam, this is a suggestion that I made to the speaker. Let the speaker respond. I'll work with the speaker. Okay.
Well, I will say, Adam, that I don't think any of this is in any way meant to be nefarious. I think the intent was honorable, and NK has indicated his willingness to work on an alternative. So I intend to follow through with that. And one of the things that I think is of value, Adam, it was the very issue that you raised early on with the initial committee situation in Mays, which was the having an outsider verify, and we worked on an agreement that someone from the EC would do it. I actually was the one to do it the first time around, and that's been codified in the SAP. So I don't think that that there is any malicious intent here at all, and I will make sure that I keep everyone fully apprised of where we land on this.
So Dale, with all due respect, I appreciate your auditing of the election, and I trusted it, and I was very happy with what you did there. But with all due respect, if there no longer is an election, that if all the faculty members are simply appointed and there's just a nomination process and not a vote, then I don't even see the point of an audit. And it's hard for me to do it, but I will take NK's word for it that this is not maliciously intended, that his intentions are good. Yes, I'll take that. I'll take your word. I'll take his word for it. But it still does not engender much trust. I mean, if you're trying to eliminate any and all ability for faculty to put people on search committees over and above the administration's desires, that really, well, it seems like you don't really trust us either. And this is not a good way forward. So I would implore both you, Dale, and NK to keep that election, keep the election clause as is, and also keep the promptly clause as is.
So I'll just add one last thing, Adam. The EC was unanimous in the desire to retain the election. And that was part that was communicated to Dr. Anand and generated the conversation that he and I had in the agreement to work on language. So I just want to be clear that everybody on the EC is with you on the idea of election.
So Provost Scott may wish to chime in.
Interim. One of the things that I would say is, and we discussed this with Adam, and Adam reminding us that he authored the language for the SAP, and so we went back and we paused the business search and did it according to wishes. There is that it may work well in certain colleges depending on the number of departments that they have. Arts and science will have 19 or 20 departments. So when I came into this position, and it was, here were a slate of nominees, and I would start at the one that got the most votes. And that person would be the first one that was asked to be on the committee. Then If the second person on the committee and the third person and fourth person were all from the same department, all the same rank, all the same gender, we had permission to go down the list to select people that also were nominated and got votes, but represented different constituents in the college. And so it did make sure that our searches were represented by various departments in a particular college. It was not nefarious. It was not, well, let's put somebody on without asking. It was, and that's how this was done. After Adam raised concerns about business and we went all just by the top vote getters, and that's what we did. Then we also took heat because there were no non-tenure track faculty on there. So I expanded that even more to include them. But I'll guarantee you that these committees can get very large if we try to put every constituent, which includes sometimes advisory board members, sometimes it always should have a staff member, sometimes undergraduate, sometimes graduate. So you just have to keep thinking is we can go with the large percent, but sometimes that is at the expense of diversity within a particular college. And it's your SAP and we will follow it as best we can. But I think that is the balance that Dr. Anand has been trying to strike.
Senator Alvarado had his hand raised next.
Since this whole conversation has to do between the College of Business and the administration, perhaps the best approach, I mean, for this situation specifically, is for someone from the administration to come to your college and have a town hall meeting and have an open two-way conversation. I mean, I understand there are long-term consequences. You have a SAP in the middle of all this. I understand all that, but I think a lot can be done by just sitting down and having some kind of two-way conversation instead of accusing one side of doing this or doing that. I mean, just we need to be more productive, you know, instead of being a bit, you know, we need to move beyond this point. I guess that's my point. Thank you.
Senator Ham.
Can I address that? And NK Anand and I did have a town hall with College of Business. So point well taken.
Senator Hammond had her hand raised next.
Yeah, so I want to just all those terms using the word nefarious a lot. I think I know Tim and NK pretty well now, and I am 100% confident that they're not trying to do anything nefarious and trying to do the best situation. I think what we instead want to think about is what should be the wording in the SAP to prevent future people in the administration from doing something that is not of what it's intended. So, you know, just going back and looking at the language to figure out what is that, you know, how would someone, if someone were nefarious, which is not you two, you know, how do we protect the faculty from something? And so I think that's more where we're trying to go. And I think that I got that a little bit from what Adam had said before. And I think that it's, you know, he sort of echoed sort of a similar sentiment. So,
Senator Kolosinski has his hand raised.
Yeah, I just want to push back on something Jorge said. This isn't just a College of Business thing. This SAP governs all dean and department head searches. This affects all colleges. And the question is, do you think it is important that there are faculty members who are there because they're top vote getters, not because they're appointed? That's ultimately the question. I don't think the business school is the only college where faculty want to make sure that there is representation on the committee that's not necessarily endorsed by the administration, that's picked independently of the administration. I do appreciate Provost Scott's concerns about making sure that the committee is diverse, but as I said, you are only constrained on the majority of that committee. You still have the balance of the faculty on that committee. So say you want to have 10 faculty on the committee, 6 are elected, 4 are appointed. You could also, there's also, you can run the election in more ways than just get top vote getter. You could have the election, you could specify a rule where, top vote getters in each department are first appointed or something of that nature. I think what people like me are interested in is making sure that a majority of the faculty are not put there by appointment, that they are truly chosen by their colleagues without interference. That's all we're asking.
Great point.
Thank you.
Point taken.
Senator Cahill has his hand raised.
Sorry, I was wondering if some explanation behind the rationale of the change in the timing in section 1.1.1 could be given by someone going from promptly to determined in consultation.
Okay, I'm the one who suggested that because, if a new CEO is in place, it takes the CEO some time to understand the place. And that's the reason why I suggested. And one option is you could put 3 months, 6 months, and promptly means instantly. I mean, you have to do it. If you hire a new president, then if there is no provost, the very first day the president has to start the search.
I guess, I say this I know this is about deans and department heads, and this is not a change in the SAP for the president or provost, but I guess we have a bit of a backlog in hiring at the administration level, right? So with all due respect to the work that Mark Weichel and Tim Scott have done, we don't have a provost. Mm-hmm. And until we get a provost, everything's on hold for deans, and we have a lot of interims. So it'd be nice if the promptness could be kept in or used as a prod to get the whole pig moving through the python, maybe.
Yeah, Tony, can I speak to that? Because we have a permanent dean in ag. I'm negotiating with permanent dean in industry. So there are, granted, there were slow rolling, but I think since you have a permanent dean in education, in med. So yes, it took some time but not all of them have been interim. But I understand that the length of the interim, especially in business, has been very constraining.
And I won't say it's an issue in engineering, but it's unusual.
Yes.
And none of this should be taken to be any sort of negative aspect of the work you've done.
No, none taken at all. Thank you, Tony.
Senator Berg has his hand raised.
Yeah, I think it's really important in discussing the rules. And I think we're getting that point, following up on what Tracy said, that we're not looking to say that anything is nefarious here on one side or the other. The concern, or the way in process I've been involved in the past, is we draft rules where we imagine a hypothetical future evil administration. What could the evil administration do? And so I think the concern is that by the standard merely being nominate, that then the possibilities in place for cherry picking all the faculty of the committee simply on the strength of, well, if we can just get one nomination of the person. I don't think anybody intended that, but if we look at it for, what happens in the future when NK may not be in his position and Tim's not in his position, and we don't know who will be there, we need a process that works through that. And I think that's the real concern here, with the standard being only nomination. And so I hope we will, like Adam has discussed, that we will have an elected process.
So Dale, oops. Dr. Cecilio raised his hand.
Andrew, sorry. It seems like every time you're ready to move on, somebody jumps in. I was this one. What I've witnessed in the last hour is an amazing interchange among folks who love this school in communication and addressing points and trying to seek consensus and understanding and resolution. And so this has been, in my view, time very productive. And my sense is if one asks folks, the participants, how are things now versus an hour ago, my sense is that people would say, wow, there's been an exchange of ideas. Folks have a better understanding. There's communication and a desire to work together. And that's my sense of the Senate, if you will, that that's the goal of this. And I thank you all very much.
Well, that seems like a very appropriate time to pull the formal part of our meeting to a close. And I will invite Speaker-elect Hammond to take us into the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Speaker Rice. I want to begin by asking if there are any positive actions or items of concern that are occurring on campus related to diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Senator Hammond has raised her hand.
I wanted to mention that the Texas Land Grants Day has been moved to November 4th, and as well as a Prairie View A&M tailgate being planned for the next day. It was moved because of ABET preparation concerns. So I will provide more information as we get closer to the date.
NK has his hand raised.
Yeah, if it is appropriate for me to say that we have launched a ASS Plus program for FY23 and FY24. The president has authorized $1 million each per year. So it is a 50-50 cost share between the colleges and schools. So if you have an underrepresented minority, targeted high, the faculty affairs at the university will provide 50% of the funds, and the college will have to come up with the 50%. So we have an ASS, and this is ASS Plus.
Senator Miranda.
So I just wanted to follow up on NK's comment, and we're very thrilled and proud to have our very first ASIS fellow at the School of Medicine. It's never happened before, so it's wonderful, and thank you.
Senator Woosley.
Thanks, Andrew. Just a point of information. We, Texas A&M, is hosting the first meeting of an organizational structure for a Texas A&M University System Faculty Senate Council on September 9th and 10th, and I'll report back on that after we get done with that.
Are there any more DEI things before we go into the regular one? Adam, is yours DEI related?
Yeah, I have a question for NK about the program he just discussed. You said it was ASIS Plus, is that correct? NK?
That's correct, yeah.
ASIS Plus.
The ASS is for junior faculty who are just graduated, and this ASS Plus is for mid-career to senior.
I see. And is it restricted to candidates who are within certain underrepresented groups? Is that how it works?
Yes, that's correct.
I see. Okay. Yeah, it would be good to see some documentation on that at some point.
Yeah, I think we sent I shared it with the, the Council of Deans, and whenever I send stuff, I send it to Senate Speaker too. I mean, I'm sure we can forward that email to you or the memo to you.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you.
And also there is an eminent faculty hire program, which is another $1 million for 23 and 24 each. That is for the, academy level type, and depending on your discipline, you may not have academy, but it is a senior thing.
And that too is restricted to members of underrepresented groups. Is that correct?
No, that's not. That is the eminent faculty.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Moving on to general items, is there any business for the Committee of the Whole?
Senator Alvarado has his hand raised first.
Yes, thank you. I know at least one case in one unit, in one department, where a candidate received a verbal offer to come to Texas A&M. That was back in April, May or so, and he's still waiting for his offer letter. And the department head in that department is telling the candidate that you're waiting for the administration to do something. I don't know what's holding things somewhere. I mean, it's just because of centralization or something else. We don't know, but it's kind of rare that someone gets a verbal offer late in the spring and still don't have an offer letter. And this person has to make a decision about his career, if to come here or not. And I guess the question I have for the administration is this common? Or do we have more of these cases where there's too much time taken to just to process these offer letters?
All right, I'm not heard anything. If you have a specific example, give it to me, because we are operating on processing requests on a 5-day cycle. And
okay, I will let you know.
We are fully staffed.
Senator Banerjee had his hand raised next.
Yeah, thank you. This is regarding our Microsoft email exchange servers that we have. Now it's become a problem where even tamu.edu emails are being marked as spam, as going to the junk folders, and some of the emails from students are going there, and we and the advisors are having a hard time trying to keep up with it, and there are like mad phone calls occurring because their emails are not being answered, and then we are discovering them in the junk mail folder, and no one seems to have an answer to this. So this should be something that needs to be investigated. I don't know if it's only in our department, but I'm assuming it's campus-wide.
Senator Hale has his hand raised.
I can talk to Andy. Yes, it's campus-wide. I found a bunch of stuff in my junk mail. Hey, I don't just come here to diss the executive committee and tell them they have too many members from a College of Arts. I come here with good news today. I just sent it to Dale and Tracy earlier. Can I share screen? Am I allowed to do that?
Yes.
There it is. This is the National Council of Faculty Senate's meeting last August 3rd and 4th, Wednesday and all day Thursday. Yours truly is the guy wearing all black on the right. Our president was in the middle there in the sort of knee-cut dress. His name is Gwen Kay. She's from SUNY Oswego. We had faculty from as far away as Virginia Tech, Stockton University, which I think is in New Jersey, and we're going forward with 501c3. The eventual vision is to have an office on our street. So we have elevator speeches to congressional staffers. That's the vision. Thanks. I'll end share.
I'll raise my hand. I'd just like to thank Interim Provost Scott for all he's done for the university in his time as provost. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Senator Alvarado has his hand raised.
Yes, quick question. What is the university doing to conserve water? A couple of weeks ago, I was walking around campus in the middle of the night. The sprinklers were on, water everywhere. My subdivision right here, South College Station, I cannot water anymore. What's going on? Are we being good neighbors to the city of College Station? We need to conserve water. Are we applying any restrictions to our, around campus? Are we, what is it? What's the plan? Are we trying to save water? That's all. Thank you.
At this point, I don't see any other hands raised.
I now return the meeting to Speaker Rice.
Thank you, Speaker-elect Hammond. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
And I imagine there are lots of seconds for that. So please vote in favor by leaving the meeting. And we will see you next month.